Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Rappaport, and as director for the Center for the Study of Constitutional Originalism, I'd like to welcome everybody to San Diego and USD for the 6th annual You and Hazel Darling Foundation Originalism Works in Progress Conference. So as in past years, I'm just extremely gratified to see how this conference has been prospering. Once again, we have a first-rate group of presenters and commentators. And what is more unusual, there's a growing number of leading scholars who have chosen to attend the conference really at their own expense and contribute. And the combination of these scholars with the Originalism Center has, I think, in the past really led to a very high-level discussion, and one that I believe really has contributed significantly to the advance of the study of originalism. So it's really just great to see this. Each year, I try to say something about the new developments in originalism scholarship. This year, to me, one of the most important recent developments has been the emergence of articles that seek to defend originalism on the basis of legal positivist premises. All right, so last year we had Steve Sachs's article, and he also published another article in Notre Dame on that. And this year we have Will Bode's paper. Will will be coming a little bit later. He had a conflict. And perhaps even, I think, certain parts of Ian Bartram's paper are relevant to this as well. And I think this is really an important new development. Traditionally, originalism has been defended on two grounds, on interpretive grounds and on normative grounds. But if originalism and positivism and this connection continues, then there may be a third ground for defending or arguing about originalism. When John McGinnis and I wrote our book 1 or 2 years ago, published our book on originalism and the good Constitution, we really just focused in on the traditional grounds, on interpretation and normative arguments. And I think if we were writing that book today, we would probably have to say something about originalism and positivism. John always wants to keep the book short, so I'd have to fight with him about it. But I'm not so sure it really changed much of our bottom line, but it would at least add a chapter or two. Sadly, you don't get paid by the page. Of course, this is not really to say that positivists have been unconcerned with constitutional theory or originalism. Obviously, people like Matt Adler, I've been discussing this for a while, and various critics of originalism, such as Dick Fallon, have written a fair bit about this. But it's only recently that there's been attempts to defend originalism based on positivism, and I think that's really what's new. One of the nice things about the conference and the papers that are presented here is that it gives us something of a window on the originalism scholarship that's being produced. And this year's papers, I think, represent something of a departure from past years. So in the last several years, there have been at least 2 papers on the 14th Amendment, right? The last maybe 3 years we've had, and before that as well, plenty. And some of those years we've had more than 2 papers, right? And this is important, I think, because a lot of people think that originalism ignores the 14th Amendment. This year, however, we have no papers on the 14th Amendment, right? And whether that's a sign of things to come, obviously remains to be seen. But for now, at least, I think we've got no shortage of works on the 14th Amendment, with Kurt Lash recently publishing a book on that, and Chris Green's new book coming out, I think, next month. So is Chris here? A lot of no-shows. So this year's conference is dominated by papers on theory, with 3 papers on theory and 1 paper on the related subject of methodology, right? And theory obviously has been traditionally a very popular area, and it continues to be so. But, you know, the theory area is branching out, as I've said, with the respect that one of these papers is a positivism paper. And perhaps even the methodology papers are branching out in the sense that Mulligan's paper is something that's completely new, or completely new to me. One regrettable area of continuity, I think, with past conferences is that there continues to be a lack of papers on the Bill of Rights. Right? So in the past 2 years, each year there was either half of a paper or a full paper on the Bill of Rights, depending on how you count it. But in either event, not very much. And given the importance of the subject and the lack of the work in the area, this is both, I think, surprising and unfortunate. This year, there are no papers on the subject. So, the remaining papers for the conference are on the original Constitution, on standing, on the contract clause, and on international law. And each of these subjects, I think, is very important, and they've largely been unrepresented at previous conferences. And so they're really very welcome additions to the papers and the conferences. Okay, so let me now turn to this year's conference and just say putting together a conference of this kind involves a great deal of work, and so I'd like to thank various people. First and foremost, I want to thank Mike Ramsey. Mike planned this conference with me from the very beginning, doing an enormous amount of work at every stage. I also want to thank Steve Smith, who also did a significant amount of work on the conference. Thanks as well to Dean Stephen Ferrulo, both for the conference and the center and the strong support he's given. In addition, I want to recognize Trang Pham for all the hard work that she does in organizing the conference, and also my research assistants, Matthew Lopes, Samuel Leff, and Ashton Cohn. Finally, I want to thank Rick Stack and the Hugh and Hazel Darling Foundation for their really generous support. Their 5-year grant to the center has made possible the continuation of this conference, as well as the other things that the center does every year. So thank you so much to the Hugh and Hazel Darling Foundation. So let me now say a few words about administrative matters, about how the conference is going to run. The papers will work as follows. I sent you an email on this, but let me just remind everybody. First, the paper presenter will have approximately 10 minutes to summarize their paper. Then the commentator will have approximately 10 minutes to give their comments. And then the presenter will have 2 to 3 minutes to respond. We'll then open it up for a discussion with a cue kept by the moderator, so you want to get the moderator's attention on that. And to avoid the situation where the paper presenter is responding to every comment that's made, we're going to follow what we've done in the past, this rule of 3. Right? So the moderator will allow 3 persons to make a comment or ask a question. And only then will they give the presenter and the commentator a chance to respond if they want to. Right? They don't have to. Presenters shouldn't feel obligated to respond to every question at the very least, to put it that way. Now, the moderator will have discretion to depart from this scheme, not for the paper presenter or the commentator, who will have plenty of opportunities to respond, but occasionally to allow one of the conference participants to interject a point if one of the questions relates to what they've said. And so we can allow a little bit of flexibility, but let's not keep it to more than 1 or 2 times a session. Okay, well, with these announcements, I thought we could start out by having everyone introduce themselves and their affiliation. So I'm Mike Rappaport, University of San Diego.
Laurie Klaus, San Diego. Wes Child, San Diego.
Sarah Brisman, Research Fellow here.
Christina Mulligan, Brooklyn Law School.
Randy Barnett, Georgetown, where I direct the Georgetown Center for the Constitution also.
Matt Adler, Duke Law School.
Bob Bennett, Northwestern.
Jim Ely, Vanderbilt Law.
Shakir Sanders, Idaho.
Judd Campbell, Stanford Constitutional Law Center.
Caleb Nelson, Virginia.
David Moore, BYU.
Tom Colby, GW.
Mila Sahoni, San Diego.
Stephen Sachs, Duke.
Randy Kozel, Notre Dame.
Jim Vander, Northwestern.
Dan Burke, Imerstall, LLB.
Larry Solom, formerly San Diego, sadly, currently Georgetown.
Miranda Fleischer, San Diego.
Mike Ramsey, San Diego.
Jet Pojanowski, Notre Dame.
Samuel Bray, UCLA.
David Golub, NYU.
Ian Bartram, UNLV. Brian Wildenthal, Thomas Jefferson School of Law.
Jack Balkin, Yale.
Richard Eakins, Oxford.
Fred Schauer, Virginia.
Larry Alexander, San Diego.
Cyber Cross, Virginia.
Okay, so we move on to the first conference. First paper?